his party. If Democratic voters stop smoking crack, they might start thinking for themselves and become Candace Owens or something. Can't have that. So it's new crack pipes for everyone. Unfortunately, this change comes too late for one Democratic Party icon. 30 years ago, crack addiction was still considered embarrassing, especially for elected officials. In some places, it was illegal. Here was the mayor of Washington, D.C., fervently pursuing the equity agenda before it even had a name. Back then, we just called it smoking crack.
Okay, I understand. Pay attention to what I'm telling you. Listen to your rights. I should never come up here again. Never did. Set me up like this. Set me up and go.
Marion Barry, ladies and gentlemen, a civil rights pioneer. He was fighting racism with that crack pipe, smoking away the vestiges of white supremacy in the colonialist patriarchal moment. If only we had recognized Barry's heroism at the time. A prophet is never honored in his own hotel room. To be fair, Joe Biden didn't honor Marion Barry either. Here's Joe Biden a year after the mayor's drug bust.
If you have a piece of crack cocaine, no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, $1/4 of $1. We passed a law through the leadership of Senator Thurmond and myself and others, a law that says you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years.
You know who that hurt back then? That hurt the black community. Think about that. He gonna throw black people in jail for 5 years.
That was Joe Biden then. Now Joe Biden's giving out free crack pipes to black people. So maybe the lesson here is that real growth is possible. Sometimes wisdom really does come with age.
Sometimes it
now, you may be wondering as you watch all of this, hold on a second.
grows in the wrong way.
Is this country really that crackheads don't have enough crack pipes? I seem to remember reading somewhere that more than 100,000 Americans died last year from opioid ODs. What are we doing about that?
Nothing.
Question. And the answer is nothing. We're not doing anything about that. Those 100,000 Americans weren't from officially marginalized groups. Their deaths had nothing to do with the equity agenda.
Exactly.
Their deaths may have helped the equity agenda by changing the demographics of the country in a way that benefits the Democratic Party. So as far as the Biden administration is concerned, it's not a bad trend. Sure, a lot of people died from opioids in Joe Biden's first year. In fact, the total body count was the equivalent of a significant American city, the entire population. Every man, woman, and child in, say, South Bend or Roanoke, Virginia. On the other hand, these were exactly the kind of people the administration hates anyway. So with equity in mind, the White House plans to continue allowing as much fentanyl as possible to come into this country through Mexico. Here's Fox's Bill Malugin reporting.
Illegal immigrants and drugs continue to spill across the border.
He's going back.
Yeah.
In fiscal year 2021, CBP seized 11,201 pounds of fentanyl nationwide. That's enough to kill more than 2 billion people. The seizures are significantly up from seizures in fiscal years 2020 and 2019. The largest fentanyl bust in 2021 came in August in Otay Mesa near San Diego. That's where CBP recovered 127 pounds of the deadly opioid, which was being smuggled in a trailer driven by a Mexican national. It had a street value of $13 million.
You don't hear much about fentanyl use.
I didn't hear anything about that.
Just how quickly it's growing. The DEA's
Yeah, they cover everything up in Los Angeles. It is so corrupt here. It's unbelievable.
Customs and Border Protection seized just 2 pounds of fentanyl over the entire year. Fast forward to last year. Customs and Border Patrol seized more than 11,000 pounds of fentanyl. That means the amount of fentanyl flowing into the U.S. has increased by 560,000% in less than a decade. What is Joe Biden doing?
Our government's doing it on purpose. That's what open borders is, to destroy a country from the inside out.
Open around the country for people to inject opioids. And this, too, is part of the equity agenda. Intravenous drug users are, by definition, a historically marginalized group. Susan Rice is thinking hard about how to help them stay addicted. It's a matter of fairness. Let's say it's 4 in the afternoon and you want to shoot up fentanyl, but you can't find a syringe. If you're rich and white, it's an easy fix. You just call one of your housekeepers from the intercom in the pool house and you send her to CVS. You've got servants to help. But what if you're a junkie of color living on the sidewalk in San Francisco? How are you going to shoot up when you feel like it? You need Joe Biden's help. Help us
You know, it's really not funny at all.
Michael Schellenberger is one of the very few journalists who's
But it's just so outrageous.
Spoke to a man who was living on the street in San Francisco and asked the obvious question: how do you pay for your drug addiction? Why?
Where are you from?
Alabama.
How long you been on the street?
7 years.
Drug of choice?
Heroin.
What percentage of people are still using heroin versus fentanyl?
Oh man, 5% still use heroin. Maybe.
What about meth?
Meth is just like a given mostly. You gotta do something to counteract the downer, so people either do meth or crack.
What does it cost per day?
Between 40 and 80 bucks.
Okay.
To maintain.
What percentage of people on the street you say are from San Francisco originally?
From San Francisco originally, maybe 10, probably more like 6 or 7%.
How much does it cost to meet your habit?
They're looking at $60 a day.
Has the price come down or gone up?
It's been like a race to the bottom in terms of pricing, to where a gram, even as little as 2 years ago, would have been $200. Now it's down to 15 or 20.
How do you make your money?
Petty crime,
Like what kind of stuff?
boosting, and getting in on my coins.
And how do you boost?
You go on a store and put something in your bag and get out.
You learn a number of things from watching that clip, things you never hear anybody say.
And of course, they don't get prosecuted for thieving in California if it's under $900.
It's one of the worst things.
They're just feeding. Man, that's evil.
Completely ignored by the people running the country. The second thing you learn is that it's happening because drugs are cheaper than ever.
Absolutely.
In fact, fentanyl may be the only product that Joe Biden has made cheaper since becoming
Exactly.
a gallon of gasoline, a pound of beef are much more expensive. Fentanyl
Drugs are cheaper.
And then you learn that homelessness is caused by drug addiction, and so is street crime. So if you're wondering why our cities are falling apart, it's pretty simple. Drugs. Drugs are the problem. So what does Joe Biden decide to bring us more of?
Drugs.
It makes you wonder. Candace Owens is the